Say I'm swinging it about 115 miles an hour, and I was seeing 160 miles an hour.
That's pretty good, Bryson.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for watching. This is episode number 92 of No Putts Given. I'm Miranda, and I've got Chris, Tony, and Harry with me, and we were just talking about how Harry got his dingers bag in, and it has his face on it, and he's considering bringing it on his next stop on the Form Tour, right?
I'm considering it, but I'm definitely not going to be carrying it.
No.
So, no.
Such a wannabe trotty golf move right there. British guy with his face on a bag. Have I seen that before?
Oh, he has one on his bag? That's awesome.
Yeah.
I feel like unless you come in like the top 5, that's a risky move to make.
Well, that's why I'm not taking it.
I mean, granted, this is a professional event, but like a staff bag in any event, if you're not like
on the PGA Tour or Corn Ferry.
Super high echelon, that's a baller move. To put your face on that bag is...
I like the staff bag. It came out great. Vessel did an amazing job, and I am going to show it off proudly to anyone who gives a shit or doesn't give a shit. They're going to see it.
Except at a tour event.
I think at the amateur level, like club events at your home course, absolute gold mine because people frankly won't know what to do with you.
Yeah, they'll be freaked out. Like, what is this dude? And then I'll shank it and they'd be like, why has he got a staff bag?
All right, so this week we want to talk about a much anticipated delivery that we got to the facility. Harry, the Garmin Approach R10 came in this week. What was it like out of the box?
It was like the pictures, Miranda.
We out.
It was exciting to get it in and really test it out because this is a huge manufacturer that really does some really high-end products regarding GPS watches, and the rangefinder when they first come out, it was pretty decent. So when it came to this R10, I was really, really excited about it because I think they could really do well in this area.
Talk to me about features. What does it say it offers?
So it offers 42,000 courses that you can play from your home. It looks 3D, but it's not. It's 2D basically. Something out of Mario Kart or Nintendo 64, just think of that. And you can actually set it up and play the course, say, McGregor.
Get enough of that at home, thanks.
Well, you're going to be in snow for 6 months of the year, so you might as well play it once in a while.
Fair point.
So you can actually play the course at home using this monitor. So it's got that, which is pretty sweet. You can have weekly tournaments, so you can play other people across the pond or wherever you want to kick their ass at. True Golf E6 Connect.
Novice question, probably. It links to your phone and that's how you're playing these courses? Or is it like one of the more expensive ones where you can project it on the screen?
No, so it's a golf simulator app.
Okay.
I would imagine there's some PC software. E6 is a huge package that has been designed to work with just about every launch monitor of consequence on the planet. So
yeah,
really that is a cool kind of tie-in to have.
All right, so we put it to the test, and we have said on a number of occasions that personal launch monitors just aren't there yet. We still compare it to the GC Quad as our baseline, right? But Harry, you put this one to the test, pinning it up against the Rapsodo, which is our winner for personal launch monitors, correct?
Yeah, for, in within a certain number for price-wise.
In that budget range.
We're in about 500, so this is $600. The Rapsodo is in around like 500 mark. So we put it up against that. We also put it up against the GC Quad just for reference as well. It did some things very, very similar to the Rapsodo with regards to certain swing speeds, certain angles. So it held its own for the most part. But like when it came to any other launch monitor that I've tested regarding buyer's guides, it's just unfortunately okay.
So, grand scheme of things, it's another personal launch monitor that still does not live up to the bigger units, the $18,000, the GC Quads, the Track Commands, correct?
Correct, yes. It does not live up to their expectations. I'll tell you why. Basically,
Tell me why.
Why? Tell me why.
You have a small Doppler radar on the Rapsodo and the R10, the Approach R10. And when it comes to indoors, you need at least 16 feet for the flight of the shot so the device can actually see that shot. And it needs a lot more space to actually see the whole flight so it can actually capture accurate data.
So, Tony, what I'm hearing Harry say is it's not bad, but it's not revolutionizing the personal launch monitor space.
Yeah. When you decide, hey, I'm going to buy a $500 launch monitor versus, we'll start even at the low end of where you start to get quality.
Like a $2,000 SkyTrack.
Yeah. Versus a 2000. Like you have to just know inherently that there is an accuracy cost associated with that, right? There's no rainbows and unicorns here. Like that is just the reality. It is a step down. Looking at the data, what we found is these are generally pretty good for ball speed. And if the shot is, I will say, generally straight, the total distance number tends to be pretty good. Where things get wonky is if you fade one quite a bit, or we had a specific shot we looked at quite a bit where a GC quad, and again, not a fair comparison, but it does help us understand what the real ball flight was. GC quad read it as a little push draw, and the Garmin unit read it as a push slice, and so you have a ball that if you're looking at a plot down the fairway, they were 40 yards apart, and you're like that's not accurate. One of the things I look at with the Garmin unit is it does give you a spin number. I'm like, well, how reliable is that spin number? Turns out not particularly reliable.
Right.
Again, just comparing to a known good, we're seeing on driver numbers, we saw differences of several hundred RPMs on irons and wedges, 2,000 give or take RPM difference. And so
that's a lot though.
Yeah, that's a lot. And so it's like, yeah, you would be better off not providing this number than trying to extrapolate it.
And I wasn't there. I didn't test it yet. I just looked at some of the data, and the thing that jumped out to me right away was like, it seemed like as you got up and up and up in swing speed, the variation on the Garmin was huge. Because if I got 170 mile an hour ball speed, which I don't, but if I'm Harry and I got 170 mile an hour ball speed, the difference between 3,500 RPM backspin and 2,500 RPM backspin could be 30, 40, 50 yards. And that's just, for anything other than entertainment purposes, it's almost better to not have the data.
I would say similar to Rapsodo, I think going kind of line for line and comparing and saying, hey, which one do I feel is likely to be more accurate? I think the Rapsodo is the more accurate of the two, though. I was impressed by what I saw with the Garmin on wedge numbers. I think that was typically a little closer to Foresight. But what would scare me off, especially if we think about, hey, can I use this for speed training and understanding how fast am I swinging this golf club? We just saw some major whiffs on club head speeds. And when I say major, I'm talking...
I'm swinging it about, just to see about 115 miles an hour on a GC quad to 120, depending on if I'm going after it. And I was seeing 160 miles an hour.
That's pretty good, Bryson. Nice swing.
Yeah, I'm
not so bad. Maybe you can wear your face on your own bag after all.
But then when it came to it, so if you had 164, then you look at the distance, and it didn't equate to the distance either. It was actually shorter.
It was the most poorly struck 164 mile an hour club head.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Is some of the data is just patently useless.
Yeah. Here's what I saw. So where it didn't do well was obviously as soon as you hit that D button for driver, it just decides to be like, nah, this is so much. I can't do it anymore than that. Basically, it just says, I don't have a window, even though it does have a window, and it just guesses. I did 115 miles an hour, 120 miles an hour. It did not go. Couldn't pick it up.
And what club are most people going to want to hit?
Driver.
Well, in fairness, right, Harry's club head speed, it far exceeds the average guy.
Tony, let me get to where I'm going.
All right.
Where are you going?
So then I got to 100 miles an hour. I got someone in to hit 100 miles an hour. It was still very inaccurate. I got someone to hit 90 miles an hour, and it was still inaccurate. So from there, we pretty much covered a lot of the swing speeds across the golf in public, and it still wasn't accurate. So it just happens to be that driver setting, which I still think they need to figure out. That it was just disappointing.
I mean, the upside here is these are kind of the things that can be addressed with firmware, because there is a lot of I'm going to measure this, but there's also how does my programming affect how I measure? And so there are always opportunities to improve. So it doesn't necessarily mean this is going to be a deal breaker. But also there are no guarantees it will be significantly improved later either. So it was kind of what I settled on in talking to Harry, and again looking through the data is, there are some, as he mentioned, some really compelling features with the Garmin unit, some cool simulation features, some stuff it does that the others don't do, and so it's sort of that balance. I feel like the Rapsodo is probably a little more accurate, not as feature rich, and the other thing we can just mention briefly is that, when using it in direct sunlight, the Garmin proved to be a bit more resilient than the Rapsodo, which
the Rapsodo just decided to
so.
shut off and say, nah, I'm done.
Well, it's phone dependent, correct? So if your iPhone overheats, the Rapsodo can't do anything, correct?
I had a phone on the Rapsodo, I had a phone on the Garmin at exactly the same time. The Garmin was completely fine, but the Rapsodo, because it's on a device and it's on the phone running itself as well, it decides to overheat in 5 minutes in 90-degree heat. So in the summer, it's going to be tough for you to actually use that product unless it's inside. But the conclusion I came with this Garmin is the hype justified? Is it a good product? And it depends on your personal preference. If you're
okay, so I'm putting you on the spot, Harry. Features of the Garmin, maybe it's sustainability in the heat versus accuracy of Rapsodo. You've got the $600. Which one are you buying?
Personally, I would buy the Garmin.
Interesting.
That's nothing to do with accuracy, okay? If I'm going to go for accuracy, I'm going to go for Rapsodo. But if I'm going for Garmin, it's purely because I want to beat my mates and use all the features for fun purposes. I want the banter to kick my mate's ass across the pond. I'm not using it for accuracy.
So you wouldn't use it to improve your game?
No,
it's a toy.
I'm not going to use it to map my bag, do gap testing, really delve into the data. I am never ever going to use this Garmin just because I don't know which shot is consistent and which is not. So therefore, I am very confused and I will not do it. If I want some accuracy, I'm going to go for the Rapsodo. But for shits and giggles, I'm going to go for the Garmin if I have to pick one.
All right, Chris, you're on the spot. You've got $600. Which one are you buying?
Yep, I'm going with the Rapsodo because of the accuracy component, and I think it's easier to add features. Software, like I said, you can update those. I think it'd be much easier for Rapsodo to add entertainment features to the suite of the product since they already have the accuracy component. To add those would be much easier than taking a product that's already really inaccurate that has some kind of nice window dressing and features and boost up that accuracy. Not unlike what we've seen with Foresight do over the years. They were very accurate, had a lot of those things, but their graphics package and kind of consumer-facing stuff was really pretty far behind until the last year or two. So I'm going to accuracy and let them create some better software.
All right, Tony, let's break the tie. You're on the spot. Which one are you buying?
I'm saving the money. I know.
I was going to say that, but I had to pick one.
What we see with, and pick any of these tiny Doppler devices we talk about, what we see is on some shots, they're pretty good. And on some shots, they're not. And fundamentally, like if you're only right, 50-50 or, whatever the percentage is, if you're wrong often enough, it's just not enough accuracy to trust. You don't know that what you're seeing from one shot to the next is real. And if I'm using this in any type of scenario where I want to know what the ball actually did, which is, if I'm practicing and trying to get better, I definitely want to know what the shot did. And if I'm trying to beat my friends, well, incumbent in that deal is that everybody knows what the shot did. And if there's that much fluff in that, I can't justify it. So
if you swing a driver 164, you're probably going to win long drive contest.
Yeah, I mean, in theory, right? So
then you get your face on a bag.
Whether you want to bank that money and for something better or spend it on hookers and blow. I mean, whatever works for you. But yeah, But
basically, at the end of the day, the Garmin does have a market for those golfers who don't care about accuracy. They just want to have a toy to play around with. That it does cater to that golfer.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to sum it up here, what we've learned at this particular point in time is that if you want a complete suite of metrics delivered with accuracy,
you're going to have to pay for it.
Your entry level is still $2,000. The Garmin has not changed any piece of that equation.
Mm-hmm.
Nope.
Thank you, Tony. I did want a summary. I appreciate that. All right. If you want to take a look at Harry's write-up and hype meter on this, it's published last week, so it's on the website. We'll add a link for you. Now, a couple of weeks ago, we put out a driver satisfaction survey. We wanted to see what drivers you were buying and how satisfied you were with them. Tony, you've been digging through the results. We put them up on the website yesterday. What were some of your key takeaways from what you were seeing? What are consumers buying? What did they feel?
Yeah, this was super fun. Just, I mean, to
I'm glad to hear that.
to kind of just nerd out on the data and look at purchases through different demographic lenses was really cool. So, what we saw largely mirrors the market, right? Hey, guess what? The big four brands are TaylorMade, Callaway, Ping, and Titleist. Although in our survey, we actually did have more Ping buyers in the market as a whole.
That doesn't surprise me, right?
TaylorMade is the top selling brand in the market. And I think if you're trying to explain the discrepancy, my best guess is that the MyGolfSpy reader viewer is more likely to get fitted for a driver than the golfing population as a whole. And when we broke it down, what we see is that TaylorMade and Callaway tend to be the most popular choices among off-the-rack buyers. And so, that's kind of where we started. And then, we can get into whatever you think is interesting, but lots of other kind of ways we split it out to ultimately decide and understand not only, hey, who is the most happiest with their driver purchase, but try and understand what factors really contribute to a high level of satisfaction with your driver.
The other thing I was very interested to see, too, is looking at it by the ability of the player. So seeing higher handicaps versus lower handicaps and seeing who was maybe more satisfied or not. Like that one was interesting to me that, and correct me if I'm wrong, Tony, but basically almost a correlation between the better the player you are, the more satisfied you were with your purchase.
An absolute correlation.
So I think like that's a really interesting one for me to dig into because it's like, okay, is that person, it's the chicken or egg, it's a correlative relationship or is it causal, right? Are they a better player because they get fit, get a product that's going to maybe work better for them initially, and then tend to stick with it longer and not surprisingly enough, get feedback that's like, yeah, I'm still really happy about this. There's got to be something there. It's like, well, if you're an 18 handicap, I can almost guarantee you don't like your driver right now. Like that was, yeah, I thought that was interesting.
Harry, right off the top of the report, it says 18% of the people that we surveyed did not demo a single club before they bought it. Could you imagine going out and putting a driver in your bag and not having tried it before?
I can imagine it, yeah. As a junior, I used to maybe go to the range, go to my pro shop, tape it up. So I had to tape it up the face, which is completely irrelevant if you want to try and feel spin and all that kind of stuff. But as a kid, you wouldn't know that. You just try not to sky it. I used to go down to the range and hit maybe 3 shots with it and be like, oh, feels nice. I'll take this. And I wouldn't even class that as demoing it, to be honest. So as 18%, I'm surprised it's not even higher.
Are you surprised that TaylorMade came out on top in terms of that's what most people are buying?
No, I think they do a fantastic job of marketing at the end of the day. I really do. I think they have a great team when it comes to that.
But I will say that's super interesting about TaylorMade in general. Not only do they resonate loudly, but they resonate almost equally across the entire demographic of handicap ranges.
Yeah,
we survey. So we went, I think we broke it up in 5-point chunks of, scratch to 0, 0 to 5, basically, so on and so forth. And it was only, I want to say it was either 10 to 15 or 15 to 20. I'd have to double check which bucket it was. But it was only in one of those 2 buckets that TaylorMade didn't account for 20% of the driver purchases. And for that one, it was like 18.5 or 19%. So it was like almost there. So you can effectively say that TaylorMade has almost equal appeal across every handicap demographic, certainly among our readers. And there is no other brand that you can remotely say that for. So if you look at the pattern for Ping, it kind of ramps up. And it's, they do all right across the board.
But they have peaks, right? They have peaks in different areas.
They don't really start to peak until you get like 10 to 20.
Yeah.
That's kind of the ping sweet spot. And if you look at Callaway, they don't do really particularly well with scratch or better golfers. They start to tick up in the 0 to 5, and in that 5 to 10 range is their strength.
They take off there. Yeah.
Titleist is at its strongest from scratch to about once you hit the 10 handicap, they start to drop off. And of course, again, you look at brands like Cleveland and Wilson, they tend to, their strength tends to be, and it's a relative strength, of course, but tends to be with the higher handicap players. So right. It is really interesting to see kind of, all right, who peaks where, if handicap is kind of your baseline metric.
Right, Tony, of those big companies, when we look at, and you can go back to our driver testing too, it's not like there's a gap in any of the lineups where it's like, oh shit, we don't have a great driver to fit the typical 10 to 15 handicap player, right? Like, TaylorMade, Titleist, Callaway, Ping, Cobra. You look across the driver lineup, they have products that we can easily say would fit the most typical player at each of those demographic, each of those handicap regions, yet TaylorMade is like equally applicable to everybody. Yeah,
there is no group to which TaylorMade does not appeal if you define your group by handicap, and that is a very, very unique kind of thing. I guarantee you that Titleist would love to be sort of in that equation for the golfer who thinks he needs forgiveness and for whatever reason doesn't consider Titleist to be a forgiving brand. Is crazy, knowing what we know about MOI numbers and things like that, it doesn't make sense, but perception matters probably as much, if not more, than anything else in the marketplace. Ping similarly doesn't resonate quite as well with the better player. They kind of hit that middle, and then we've talked about Callaway before, where they just don't resonate as well as they'd like to with that better / elite golfer, and that comes through as well.
That's cool.
I actually found this very interesting. Tony, you wrote that golfers who spend the most money, which you said is more than $1,000, are more likely to be satisfied, and people's willingness to be unsatisfied goes up as the price goes down.
Yeah, is
that like a confirmation bias of I spent this much money on this, so of course I'm happy with it?
It's funny. It's like,
could be a multitude of reasons.
Money can't buy happiness, but it maybe can buy you a driver that
it can buy you a boat.
Not happiness, but it can buy you satisfaction. Yeah.
And again, I think that is confirmation bias to an extent, and it's a couple factors. One, like, fuck, if I'm going to spend $1,000 on a driver, right, I'm going to convince myself that I love it, and
that's what I mean. Yeah.
The other thing too, like to get to a point where you've spent $1,000 on drivers, you've gone through an experience and you've put some exotic components in it, and yeah, like a premium shaft by no measure guarantees performance, but it's like a predetermined outcome. I mean, it's you can kind of convince yourself pretty quickly.
Well, yeah, you justify it.
Yeah, like think of like the emotional hurdles you have to go through to say, you know what, I just took my wife out for this, awesome anniversary dinner, dropped $300, beautiful steaks, all this stuff. Yeah, it sucked. I am not satisfied at all. Like, think about
the tainted beef.
Yeah, think about like the emotional. Like, yeah, I got this head, I got that, paid for the $350 upgraded shaft, did this, that, walked out, and yeah, I'm just not feeling it. I mean, I mean, like you have to kind of admit to yourself then, like you failed yourself, and I think people don't want to admit that when they spend that much. But hey, I bought a really shitty driver for $183, and I don't like it anymore.
And that's why I'm bad at golf. I'm dissatisfied.
There's no shame in like, yeah, I didn't spend much on this, and I don't like it, and yeah, whatever.
Yeah, like I only spent $300. What did I expect? I didn't expect to be happy for.
I didn't expect to be able to buy a PXG, but I did.
It's a whole other conversation.
That's a whole different, yeah.
One like, hey, golfers who get fit for their clubs are significantly more likely to be satisfied with their purchase than those who don't. And so, there's still some out there that believe that fitting doesn't matter in terms of performance. And I would argue there's no argument to be had. Like, it absolutely does. And then the next piece of it is like, yeah, not only will you very likely get a club that performs better for you, but yeah, you're going to be just generally happier about it.
I'm not going to argue with you. I'm just going to explain to you why I'm right.
All right. So some interesting insights for everybody to go take a look at there. We'll link it here. Otherwise, you can find it on the website. Tony, what time is it?
Mailbag!
There we go. That's what I like to hear.
The dog just jumped up and left the room like something was going on. Like, it's...
Sorry to your dog, but that's a
No,
necessary part of the show. So this week, Daniel White, one of our readers, wants your opinion on what to buy in terms of shafts. He says, curious of your opinion and guidance. If I was debating about switching from steel to graphite shafts in my Ping G410. Chris, what would you tell Daniel?
We're talking iron shafts here.
G410 irons, yes.
I hope if he has a steel shaft in his G410 driver,
all right,
yes.
now, buddy, if you're playing a 410 driver with like an old DGX100 driver shaft, yeah, we should talk. You know, what I tell you this, absolutely be open to the differences that are out there. I am encouraged by a lot of the different options that are out there. I don't necessarily see a tremendous downside to graphite, with the one exception being potentially cost. You know, if you're going to be okay investing, maybe it's going to be $60, $70, $80, $100 a club to get them reshafted and go that route. Absolutely. I don't think that there's a tremendous downside to it. I would explore it. We know that some companies have additional products coming out here in the next, call it 6, 8, 10, 12 months. Mitsubishi's MMT has been super popular this year, especially because they had it in that 125 gram range, which has really attracted a lot of faster tempo, better players potentially that need a little bit heavier shaft. You know, you're seeing offerings get into that 120 to 125 gram range, so people aren't having to make that choice between, hey, geez, I really like the graphite idea, but I just can't play a 100 gram shaft, a 110 gram shaft. I really need something heavier. So we're starting to see companies put more resources and energy and effort into that particular segment of the graphite shaft area, and also getting EI profiles that match really popular clubs or really popular shafts, like I'm going to say like a Dynamic Gold X100, you know, something that people might have played in the past to say, okay, this isn't a totally different bend profile than what I'm used to. So I'd say full steam ahead, all systems go, give it a run. Let us know if you go that route.
Tony, what would you tell Daniel?
I would say it's worth kicking the tires on, but Chris mentioned, right, one downside is cost, and the other significant downside is that there just isn't that multitude of profiles available. You don't span the same type of weight classes that you do. So, you know, if you are a true 125 gram type of player, the guy who still wants that heavier iron shaft still benefits from that iron shaft. Maybe two legit options out there. I don't even know if Recoil is if they're even still making the 125s other than the Protos. So, you know, it's not a huge market. And so if you tend to be on that edge of the bell curve, it can be tricky to find a graphite shaft that works. But if you're in that call it 95 to 105 and even up to 115 in some cases kind of range, then yeah, you're starting to see more options out there, more profiles now. You know, we sort of are in this dearth of availability being caused by COVID and supply chain issues and everything that goes with that. So, you know, it may not be the best time to switch because you maybe
there's not a lot of selection, and what we do have is not available. So other than that,
yeah, Chris mentioned, right, that's something that's coming in the next 2, 3, 4, 24 months kind of thing, and that's the reality for everything. So yeah, I think there are opportunities there, and especially if you know you're looking for something that provides a little softer feel. For me, it was like, all right, let's see if I can take a little stress out of the elbow because I was having problems there. And so in those respects, it can be hugely beneficial. But at the end of the day, like, the thing that has to happen first is that it fits you well. And so if you're not getting a good fit out of graphite options, that's probably where the conversation needs to end. But it really depends where you fit on that bell curve.
All right, Harry, I know you're a graphite guy. What are you telling Daniel?
I say give it a go. I would buy one, put it in your 7-iron, see if you like it, see if you get too much play on it. And if you do, then you can end up tipping it like I did. I ended up tipping it actually 3/4 of an inch, because I just wanted a baby draw or a baby fade. I was getting a little bit too much play with my swing. But at the end of the day, I feel like you can do a lot more with graphite shafts than you can with steel. If it's steel, you put it in and that's it. That's your bend profile, that's your torque, that's your kick point. Yes, they have a lot more options to play with, But if you like the stability of a graphite shaft, like I did, my dispersion got better, my consistency of spin rate got better, my strike got better with these graphite shafts from Fuji. That is where I was like, all right, well, there's something in this. Let's adapt this shaft to my swing. And that's where I started tipping it a quarter of an inch at a time. I just feel like you can do a lot more with graphite shafts than you can with steel. So I'm all for it. I say give it a go, see what it is. And I used to be a X100, so that's 130 gram, I think, or 132 extra stiff shaft. And I went down to 115 grams and didn't notice a difference. But I tell you what I did notice is towards the end of a round, I was more fresh when it came to the last 3 or 4 holes in that heat than trying to lug 130 grams around my neck, trying to swing it as hard as I can to try and get the best out of it.
It's such a weird thing to think about, but I do like it's something I know for a fact that Ping has looked at is, if we shave some weight out of a club, like, does that actually reduce fatigue over the course of a round of golf?
I definitely felt it, for sure. I definitely felt it. So, something to look at.
Daniel, you've got 3 answers. Let us know if you end up buying graphite or steel or moving from one to the other. We're interested. And otherwise, like, comment, subscribe. Chris, you were awesome in the comments this past week. So if you have any specific questions, let us know and we'll try to hit you up in the comments. All right, we out. I thought we'd break down one of the most important reader questions that you detailed in the article. How do I find the right golf ball for my game? How do you, if you don't fit neatly into any of these recommendations that you've made, Tony, how does a golfer start to find the right golf ball?
So the first point is, right, finding the